Hello, everyone. Welcome to PR 101, your go to podcast for mastering the essential of PR strategy and execution. And I'm your host, Vanang. This series will equip you with practical insights and actionable tips to elevate your PR game. In this episode, we will talk intensely about a trendy topic in this digital era: authenticity in communication. With my two special guests, we will cover all the aspects of authenticity in print communication, including the importance of authenticity in the way brands communicate and how to communicate authentically and effectively in the world of digital. Now it's time for our lovely guests. I'm very pleased to have Miss Duong Tran and Miss Ngan Hoang, who both have over 6 years in marketing and communication. Mrs. Duong is currently a marketing executive at said business school, University of Oxford. Besides, she is the co-founder and head of operations of Together We Grow, a non-profit project aiming to help Vietnamese students prepare for their university application that also support their personal development. Mrs. Kim Ngan is marketing coordinator at First Enterprise Loans in the UK and also the co-founder and head of MarComms of Together We Grow. First, let's have a chat with Miss Kim.
Hello, Vanang. I'm Kim.
In the very competitive business world of today, brands must figure out how to stand out from the crowd. Consumers are no longer influenced solely by product feature or clever marketing campaigns. They crave for authenticity and transparency from the brands they support. So, how would you define authenticity in brand communication and why it's important?
So, first of all, communication first. So, for communication, to me, it's like a bridge so that you can bridge the gap between the audience, the people who don't know who you are and what you do, and you bridge that gap of those people with your brand. Um, and the brand itself, they want to express themselves in a way that make people understand who they are and what is the personality of that brand. Yeah. So the job of communication is like bridging that gap between the audience and the brand. And so authenticity is when you can do that in a very authentic way. You can make people understand your true self, your brand.
Consumer nowadays, especially younger generation, they are become more cautious about what brands share. From your observation, what are the difference in the way brands communicate with their audience nowadays?
Well, yeah. So actually, I'm belonging to the nowadays generation. So I don't know much about marketing and communications in the past, but as I observe the kind of the past materials, what they did was quite flashy. They always did things and make things to become quite flashy so that people could view them as like more beautiful than in the real life. But nowadays everyone prefers something that is real and that is really authentic, and they can they can understand right away that, oh, this is just some kind of makeup. They just don't think that it is true. Yeah, so that's why nowadays brand needs to do something differently.
So brands have to be very careful in delivering the content and communicating with their customer because they can sway their back on the brands once they feel being deceived. So what are the things brand can do to communicate authenticity and effectively in a virtual world?
Yeah, so in the virtual world, it means when you have to show your brand personality through maybe through words or maybe something kind of webinars, and it's not like physical, not in person. So yeah, it's quite difficult. But I think um, the thing that they can do is about internal communication, internal training, They have to look at the bigger picture of how things can be consistent, and everyone in the team has to be consistent with that and has to be aware of that. Because if because the brand communication is an effort of the whole team, is a kind of collaboration, and it's not individuals. So that's why they have to be aware of the fact that everything needs to conform to a guideline, and guideline is not enough. Companies need to start from hiring people to training people, not just putting the guideline in front of them, but really train them and um, build a kind of culture in the organization itself. So
Yeah.
managers to employees, they need to build that kind of culture so that it's when they communicate it out to the partners, to clients, and to audience, it's the same as what they do inside the
Yeah.
organization.
Yeah, actually, I agree with you. Thank you, Mrs. Kim Ngan, for joining me the interview today. I think that your insight and your experience will help brands a lot in creating the authenticity when doing communications. Thank you very much.
No worries, that's lovely to talk to you today.
In the next part of our podcast today, we have Miss Duong. She will share her hands-on experience as an operation manager of her own project and also from the marketing executive perspective in the education field.
Hi, it's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me to your show today. A bit about myself. My name is Duong, and I'm from Vietnam, 28. So I'm currently working as a marketing executive at Side Business School in Oxford. In addition to that, I had a personal project where I served as the co-founder and also a mentor together with Grow, which is the nonprofit education um, project where we support Vietnamese students to prepare for their university application, but also support their personal development.
The biggest problem preventing authentic brand communication is that brands aren't people, they are companies. So, how do brands maintain authenticity in communication?
I think this is a really, really interesting topic because most of the time we think that working, I don't know, like in business or entrepreneurship means that sometimes you have to sacrifice your authenticity, but I don't think it's the case because I think as a business founder, as an organizational leader, I think being authentic is actually what sets you apart from other competitors because there are so many people that operate in the same area, the same industry. So if you're not being honest and if you're not being authentic with your brand or with your target audience, then you end up being similar with other service provider out there. So as I said, I don't think that working in business means that you have to sacrifice your authenticity. And what I have been doing in my organization together with my team is always to prioritize authenticity and honesty as we are an education service provider and being in education, I think that authenticity, honesty is always and trust is always what you value the most in what you do. So I think the first thing is to really understand your audience,
Yeah.
understand as in who they are and what problems they're having with. And to start out with, I don't think that we aim to sell to people, but it's more than acting as a service provider that can a problem solver that can help our audience or our customers or our students solve the problem. So it's a lot about understanding your audience and their pain points. What are they looking for, and what we can help them as in a business or service provider. And secondly, being really purposeful with your communications. In my opinion, I think that if you don't have anything to say, don't say it. Only say it when you really have something to say that added value to your client. So, yeah, just don't say generic things or things that are cliche. So it's not my ways of doing things. So whenever I communicate to my students, my potential students, my clients, my customers, I always make sure that I have something to say and so in other word, being really purposeful with what you are trying to communicate and what objective, what is that you want to achieve with your communication. And last but not least, I think what has helped us maintain our authenticity is that we are always trying to be more human as a brand. So we're not a brand, we're not like just a logo or just or just a Facebook fan page. That's not all about us. We are all human, and we always want to show us our client, our students, who is behind that particular brand. So we always showcasing our team, from our mentors, peer mentors, our marketing team. So everyone who is involved, in the team, should be there. Should their stories should be featured. The profile should be available on the website for students or our clients to see. And by being human, I also mean that you can be vulnerable, you can be emotional, you can be willing to accept flaws in case you make some mistakes to your students. You need to, or to your clients, you need to have the bravery to admit your mistakes and propose a solution to overcome or to rectify that. So yeah, it's I mean what's special about being human is no one is perfect, and if a brand wants to be a human, then a brand can never be perfect.
That's so insightful. Do you have any other advice in communicating authentically for brands?
Yeah, I think yeah, for me it's all about shifting your mindset. So I would say first, as I said, focus on building trust. I think this is what brand usually overlook, because as a brand, as an organization, as a company, then I understand that a very important priorities for a company is the bottom line, is the profit, is the revenue. So most of the time, we forget that we have to build trust, because people are buying because your product is great, but there are so many other alternative products in the markets, and they can totally stop buying from you and buy from someone else if they don't have trust in you. Yeah, so especially for service, and for education like us, trust is, I think, is the most important thing. So focus on building trust if you want to be authentic to your clients. Business doesn't mean that you have to try everything that you can do to get your product sold. In my experience, a lot of the time I have turned my students away because I think they would not benefit from my course. So I'm being really honest with them that I don't think that the course is for you. So because we have different missions. My mission is for you to really explore yourself, and then from that understanding, self-understanding, you can move on to apply for university. But my focus is not to help you create a best university application. I'm not going to write the essay for you. I'm not going to do things on behalf of you. So if that's what you expect, then I don't think that the course is suitable for you. That's what I have been doing. Even though that we still need people, we still need students to meet our target. But my understanding is that if we say yes to them and we couldn't provide, we couldn't fulfill our promise, then they can only be one-time customer. They will never come back. And you lost a client, and the cost of acquiring a new client is always much higher than the cost of retaining a current client that you already have. Yeah, so focus on building trust. And
Yeah.
secondly, yeah, I think twice before you deliver a message to your audience, because it can affect your trust.
Yeah, I think that's so great. I think that would help a lot for another brand who is listening to our podcast today, for your sharing, for your experience and insight.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining me today. That's all for our topic today. Authenticity and transparency have become essential attributes for brands looking to succeed in the market in the era of empowered customer. Authenticity and transparency are key tenets for brands that will win over customer and foster an environment that is more honest and open for business. Thank you, our guests, for your time and the valuable insights that you bring to our podcast today. I'm very sure that our listener have gained helpful inputs to take away. Thank you for listening to the PR 101's first episode today. Don't forget to subscribe. We're on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. See you on the next episode of PR 101.